Football. It's our second episode. Can you believe that?
That's amazing. Can't believe we got this far.
Can't believe we've made it all this way.
What an amazing feat.
What an amazing feat, yeah. We have a new editor. His name is Zay Butler. He's going to be helping us out now at the show. And that new graphic that just came forward, that was all him. So Thank you to Zay.
Zay's my man. I love Zay.
Zay's a good dude. He's on the tennis team with me with the high school, so.
I've known him for a long time.
Zay's a good old legend. Anyways, let's just get started. Let's jump right into it.
Oh, just for new viewers, Nephi Ken, Tanner Adams.
Tanner Adams. Welcome back to Dual Tone College Football, where I am white and he is not.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Alrighty. Well, let's start off with Penn State versus Ohio State.
This was a fun matchup. Fun and a little bit sloppy too on kind of both sides a little bit, in my opinion. A lot of crucial penalties for Penn State. They had 5 penalties for 45 yards. They did have that one that they really needed back was the where the guy was getting up and he ended up stepping over the Ohio State player, which caused a first down, which I thought that was stupid because he looked like he was just getting up, but it's okay. Ohio State's running game did really well. Quinshon Judkins, 14 attempts, 95 yards, 6.8 average, and Travion Henderson, 10 attempts, 54 yards, and 5.4 average.
Yeah, I mean, something we talked about last week was Ohio State's inability to run the ball so far against quality teams.
Yep.
And, I mean, they did pretty solid. I mean, 176 isn't anything crazy to write home about, but it's still something to build on.
Yeah, it got the job done for Ohio State.
It sure did. Ohio State had 358 total yards. Penn State 270. Biggest thing for me in this game was Penn State's inability to get anything going offensively.
Yeah.
They didn't have a single offensive touchdown. Their one touchdown came on an interception touchdown.
Great play, though.
Yeah, great play. Great play. But, yeah, I mean, they got to figure some things out on offense to really contend.
And they also had 2 turnovers, too.
Yep.
Which was big.
That's going to kill you in a big game like this. The struggles on offense for Penn State were very apparent, though, in their drives. It was a field goal, punt, interception, field goal, punt, downs. So just a lot of punting, a lot of 3-and-out stuff. Like, most of their yardage came on just 2 or 3 drives.
Yeah, nice workout for the punter, though.
Yeah. Yeah, punter really enjoyed that day, but the rest of the team did not.
Punter had a field day. I think he was the player of the game.
Yeah, he must have been. Ohio State still, though, couldn't do a ton offensively. That's because Penn State's really good defensively. But 20 is enough to win you a game. 13 is just not.
Exactly. And Ohio State, they didn't have to go up against like a super tough offense. I don't think they were worried, and I really wasn't worried in Ohio State beating Penn State in this game. Penn State did have a very nice start, though. Wasn't touchdown first drive, and then they had the pick 6, or was it field goal then pick 6?
I don't remember.
I think it was a field goal then a pick 6, and then another field goal. Or no, field goal, pick 6, touchdown Ohio State, and then.
Yeah, I think that's how it went because Ohio State had the lead going into half.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, Drew Aller was just awful. He had a QBR of 29.2. That's just not going to get it done at a program like Penn State.
He was the second. He had the second most rushing yards as well, Drew Aller.
Yeah, he had the second most rushing yards, but that was only with a 3.1 average. I mean, Penn State couldn't really get it done on the ground. Something that we said for Penn State to win this game would need to happen, for Ohio State to win this game that would need to happen is they would need to slow down Penn State's rush game, and they did exactly that. Penn State averaged 3.8 on the ground, which just isn't very good. Well,
Nick Singleton, he's their starting running back. He actually got injured in that game. He only had 6 attempts for 15 yards, 2.3 average, which I don't know how much different of a story it would have been if he was in there, but I mean, we could only imagine how much different it would be.
We could only imagine. But yeah, good win for Ohio State. This kind of solidifies their spot in the Big Ten championship because now they just gotta
get past.
They gotta get past Indiana.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in that game. I'm really excited for that one to end up happening here in a week or 2.
Yeah, we'll see if Indiana's actually what they show themselves to be.
For sure. All right, moving on. Texas A&M versus South Carolina.
This game was very one-sided. You were right.
Yeah.
South Carolina won.
I was right.
A&M couldn't really do anything. Marcel Reed, he didn't play a very good game.
He didn't play a terrible game though either. 18 for 28 is not awful.
Yeah.
Only one interception. I thought that South Carolina would get him to throw more than that. If they were going to win the game, but they only got one interception out of him.
Yeah, and their South Carolina's D-line did exactly what they needed to do.
South Carolina D-line did South Carolina D-line things, and that's why they ended up coming out on top in this game.
Yeah, I mean, they held A&M to only 144 rushing yards.
Yep, 3-4 per carry.
And no one running back had over 100 yards. Amari Daniels was he had the most amount on the ground for 83 yards, 1 touchdown.
But keep in mind, too, he had a long of 56 yards. So if you take those out, he only had 12 carries for 27 yards.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for that big run, A&M's rushing statistics look even worse. So South Carolina just really brought things down on the ground.
Yeah, they did a really good job. I liked what South Carolina had to do, and I'm excited to see what they do this week against Vandy.
Yeah, South Carolina is an intriguing team because they have 2 really close losses to Alabama and LSU. If they had the ball bounce their way a bit in those games, then they'd be in a completely different spot right now.
Yeah, they could possibly be going for a playoff.
Yeah, they'd be a playoff contender for sure with 1 SEC loss.
Yeah.
Regardless, though, they lost those games, so here they are. They're probably going to make a bowl game, though.
Yeah. South Carolina, though, I just want to go to their rushing game. They did really well, 286 yards on the ground. Lenoris Sellers, he was their quarterback. He did pretty decent, but Raheem Sanders, he's their running back, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 20 attempts for him.
Yep, 7.2 average for Raheem Sanders. And an interesting talking point going into this game was how good Texas A&M has been at stopping the run. This is something we talked about last week, is how progressively better they've gotten at defending against the ground over the past few weeks. But that just didn't matter in this game because South Carolina just gouged them.
Yeah, South Carolina, they're really able to expose them. I like what Shane Beamer's doing over there, though.
Yeah, Shane Beamer's a legit coach. Interested to see what they are next year. Alrighty, moving right along. We got Texas Tech versus Iowa State.
Big game. I didn't think this was gonna happen. I said last week though, I was hoping for it to happen, and it did. So.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Cyclones would pull it out. Yeah, no, it was interesting because I definitely thought Iowa State would win this game. I thought the 13.5 point favorite was too much. I figured this game would be closer than that, but I didn't think Texas Tech would come on top.
Yeah, I mean, 13.5 points has been good to teams lately for unknown reasons. It's kind of crazy. Josh Kelly, though, for Texas Tech, he did really well. 127 yards. He's their wide receiver. 127 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 8 receptions only.
Yeah, he's a legit wide receiver. I think he leads the nation in catches on 3rd down. I heard that while watching the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a really good receiver. Just comes up in those big moments. The interesting thing about this game is I thought if Tech was going to beat Iowa State, it would be through the ground, but Iowa State actually held Tech to 3.8 yards a carry. Taj Brooks obviously was a bit better than that. He had 4.9 a carry.
Yeah.
But still not otherworldly numbers. Really, Texas Tech, watching the game, had real success through the air.
Yeah, they did really well. Through the air, 21 for 40 and 237, which was enough to get the job done. I was actually surprised though on the amount of turnovers that Texas Tech threw in this game.
Yeah, 2 picks.
Yeah, and Iowa State only had they had 2 turnovers, 1 fumble, 1 interception.
Yeah.
And they had less penalties or less yards for penalties. They had Iowa State had 8 penalties for 59, and Texas Tech had 10 penalties for 84.
Yeah, and I mean Iowa State kind of dominated time of possession. It was 34 minutes to 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But Texas Tech won the game anyway. So I think people maybe overlook Texas Tech because of their couple of losses, like their loss to who was that? Washington State towards the beginning of the year, but they're a good Big 12 team and they can make some noise.
Yeah, and Washington State also showed that they're a good team still too.
For sure.
So that wasn't really bad loss anyways.
Yeah, Iowa State still a good team. Texas Tech just got the better of them. So.
Mahomes doing well. He's doing well over there.
Yes,
Made
sir.
a good investment.
Yes, sir. All right, Kansas State versus Houston, 24-19 for Houston. I hated this game.
Why?
As a BYU fan, that just makes the Kansas State win less good.
Yeah.
And also, we still play Houston this year, so that makes me more scared of Houston.
Yeah, Houston's actually been a surprising team, to be honest.
They have been.
They done well in some games, and then they also do bad in other games. But I mean, didn't they just beat Utah though?
Yeah, they just beat Utah, which I don't know how impressive that is right now because Utah's 1-3 in conference play, 1-4.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to make of Houston right now. They opened conference play with 2 shutouts in losses.
Yeah.
I mean, they got shut out by Cincinnati, and then they got shut out by Iowa State as well, which obviously Iowa State a good defense, but if you're a Power 5 football team, you just can't get shut out. Regardless, though, Houston won this game.
Mm-hmm. And if Houston if they don't end up making a bowl game, at least this is some good momentum for next year, so they can do some special stuff.
They have a lot to build on. Kansas State outgained them by about 95 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Which is always surprising to see a losing team outgaining the other team by that much.
Yeah.
Avery Johnson had a couple of interceptions that really just killed Kansas State in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Zion Chris was perfect on the game. 11 for 11, 103 yards, and a touchdown. No picks, obviously.
He was their highest rusher, too. 75 rushing yards for 22 attempts and 1 touchdown.
Yep, so Zion Chris, really good quarterback. So it seems, at least. As a team, Houston didn't do much on the ground. 40 carries, 121 yards, 3.0 average. So that's not great.
Mm-hmm.
But they really, on defense, held Kansas State really well. DJ Giddens had 17 carries for 50 yards, which it's hard to do that against DJ Giddens. He's been running all over teams this year. So
yeah, and like people say, and this wasn't a championship game, but defense wins championship games.
Mm-hmm.
And Houston's defense was obviously coming into this game with some firepower.
Yep.
And they ended up stopping Kansas State, which was huge for them.
Yeah, Houston's got a good defense. They've actually held opponents pretty low so far this year.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice thing to build off of, is that at least you have your defense established.
Yeah,
and
for
once
sure.
you get your offense good, then
when you have a good enough defense, it's going to keep you in every game.
Mm-hmm.
So, good win for Houston. I'm sad about Kansas State, but that's okay. I went ahead and ranked them higher last week, and they kind of embarrassed me, but it's all right. I forgive you, I guess.
Good news for Colorado, though. That puts them right back in the race.
Yeah, Colorado's right back in the mix. I mean, they kind of were anyways with one conference loss, but now they're really in it, because now they're tied with Iowa State in standings, and BYU's up at the top right now. So.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Ole Miss versus Arkansas.
Jackson Dart had a nice field day. He was throwing the ball around the whole place. He had 25 for 31, 515 yards, 16.6 average per pass, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 92.2 QBR.
98.2 QBR.
98, yeah.
So
98.
near perfect QBR on the day for Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
He was just elite in this game. Only 6 incompletions, which is crazy to think about when you think about how little incompletions that is.
Yeah, he did amazing this game. I mean, if you looked at this, you thought he was a Heisman candidate, which I mean he still is.
He was preseason.
Yeah.
Some of their losses have kind of taken him out of that though, since he hasn't been super productive in those losses. But yeah, he's a legit quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know anything about his draft plans or whatever. But if he decides to stay a year, then I think he would win the Heisman.
Yeah, I think so too. As long as he stays consistent, because that's the thing with Heisman winners is consistency. Because you see that with Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward, they're always being consistent. So if Jackson Dart can do that for if he stays for another year and he can do that, then I think he has a nice shot.
For sure. Ole Miss rushing though, not great. 42 carries for 132 yards. I think that's something they're gonna need to figure out if they're gonna be a contender down the stretch.
Yeah, actually, hold on. Ole Miss, their rushing yard, they're ranked 45th rushing yard in the nation per game, and in the SEC that won't do it. Everywhere else, I think you should be fine with that type of numbers. But
they're gonna have some hard games going down the stretch though against Georgia. I mean, Georgia's this week, isn't it?
Georgia's this week, yeah.
So yeah, they got to figure some things out on the ground. But regardless, a great, huge win over Arkansas, who's a solid team.
I was wrong about this game. I had Arkansas upsetting them, but Arkansas couldn't do it. Malachi Singleton got injured though mid-game, so I don't know how much of a factor that was.
Yeah.
The the quarterbacks for Arkansas though, they did really well. Malachi Singleton, 11 for 14, 207 yards, 14.8 average, 1 touchdown before he got injured. Then Taylor Green came in.
Well, Taylor Green's actually the starter. So it was Taylor Green that was playing, and then he got hurt, and then Malachi Singleton
Oh, Malachi.
came in.
Okay, so that's my bad.
No, you're good.
But Taylor Green, though, he did well, though, too. 10 for 14, 158 yards, 11.3. So they have a nice depth, Arkansas, at quarterback. But
for sure,
that just, it's not able to get it done for big teams like Ole Miss.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, if you're an Arkansas fan, you've got to be a little bit frustrated with the defense because you just, as a defense on a good team, you can't be giving up 63 points and expect to win a game.
Yeah.
I mean, 31 points is enough to win games. So I remember as a BYU fan a couple of years ago, actually, when we played Arkansas, it was a big shootout, and we lost the game, I think, like 45-63.
Yeah.
And the biggest frustration was, like, we should be able to score 45 points and win a game. But our defense that year couldn't stop Molasses in December. That's why we ended up firing that defensive coordinator, bringing on Jay Hill, who's been awesome for us. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did beat Arkansas last year, though.
Yeah, we did beat Arkansas last year.
I think.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, I mean, 63 points, though. Almost putting up 63 points on Arkansas. That's kind of embarrassing in the SEC.
Yep.
The top dogs in conferences.
Yeah, Arkansas's got to figure it out defensively.
Yeah.
You just can't expect to win games when you're giving up that many points. I mean, I know Ole Miss is an incredible offense and all that, but still, you gotta figure things out on defense.
Hopefully their defense can build something off of this loss. You know, just
for sure.
Just frustrated, and then their offense though they just did that much, and then couldn't do anything.
Yep. Alrighty, Pitt versus SMU, 48-25 for SMU.
Yeah, I'm not surprised this game was a blowout. I kind of knew SMU was gonna do something crazy like this, and they did. Completion and attempts for Kevin Jennings, 17 for 25, 306 yards, averaging 12.2 and with 2 touchdowns. That was an impressive number for him.
Yeah, 89.1 QBR. SMU just really routed them. I wasn't honestly all that surprised. I was just kind of happy to see it because BYU beat SMU, so that win's just looking really good for us.
Yeah, and Pitt, they didn't do too bad though. Eli Holstein, 29 for 47, 248 yards though, which is crazy. 47 attempts, 248 yards.
Yeah,
like that just kind of doesn't calculate.
No, it's only a 5.2 yard average. They had 3 quarterbacks playing this game. Nate Yarnell came in, was 9 for 10, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't know who their starter is there.
Yeah, Nate Yarnell though, he did look impressive. Towards when he got in.
I will say the stat sheet is misleading because Pitt almost had as many total yards as SMU did. It was 453 to 467. So SMU still outgained them, but not by much. But this game was 3-31 at halftime.
Yeah.
Like, the score makes it look even closer than it actually was. I mean, drives for Pitt was punt, field goal, missed field goal, punt, fumble, punt, downs, touchdown, interception, punt, touchdown. 14 of their points came in garbage time. So if you take those out, it's 11-48. This game just really wasn't close.
Yeah, and Pitt's 2 turnovers didn't really help them very much either. And SMU actually had more penalties and yardage, punishment for those penalties with the yards. 10 penalties for 85 yards.
Yep.
Compared to 6 penalties for 66 yards. Which is kind of crazy because SMU, I mean, more yards, more penalties, but Pittsburgh is still able to just get killed by them.
Yeah, I mean, SMU was really good defensively in this game, obviously. Pitt's done pretty decent on offense throughout the year, so being able to hold them to that little of points through the first half and most of the third quarter as well. But yeah, SMU just really dominant in this game. Really all of Pitt's points came in garbage time, so this was just a killing.
Yeah, watching the SMU BYU game and looking at their defense, I didn't really have much doubts after that with how their defense is able to take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, holding BYU to 18 points turns out to be an impressive thing. So
yeah. Alrighty,
Miami versus Duke. Was it ever in doubt? Was it ever? Absolutely, it was in doubt. I picked Miami to cover last week, and it was looking very unlikely in the third quarter.
They barely pulled it out. Miami had 21 points in the fourth quarter, which definitely saved your butt.
Yep. But I don't even care. Cam Ward just does Cam Ward things. I totally knew he was going to do that.
He went crazy. He went crazy in this game. 25 for 41 in this game. 9.5 yards per pass. He only threw for 1 interception. Which kind of killed Duke because they threw 3 picks. They had 4 total turnovers with 1 fumble. But yeah, this was a nice game for Miami. Scary game, and then fourth quarter came, and then Miami just pulled.
I mean, Malik Murphy kind of tore him up with his arm. If it wasn't for his proneness to interceptions, Duke probably wins this game because Malik Murphy was 25-41 for 325 yards, which is a lot. Miami was able to hold Duke's rushing attack pretty under wraps, but Duke still got 31 points on them. I'll say it again and again, but Miami needs to figure things out defensively because if they don't, they're going to struggle down the stretch when you get to teams that can stop more stuff through the air with Cam Ward.
Yeah, and we'll see again how Miami does this week with Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Because Georgia Tech, they've been a tough team all season. I mean, that Florida State win isn't looking too good for them now, but I mean, they're a good team still, 5-4.
Yeah.
For Georgia Tech, and Miami's just going to have to learn from their mistakes and hopefully get some stops there if they want to contend.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech can show up for these big games. They were pretty close with Notre Dame for a little while before Notre Dame finally pulled away. So we'll see what happens in that game.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Xavier Restrepo in this game, actually. He did really well. 12 attempts, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 receptions. Oh, wait. No. 12 attempts was from Mark Fletcher. He had 8 receptions, though, 146, 3 touchdowns still. He's a really good player.
Yeah, he's incredible. Moving on to Louisville versus Clemson. Louisville beat them 33-21, but I haven't been able to do a ton of research into this game, but I heard that that score makes it look closer than it really was.
Yeah, Louisville was kind of a blowout in this game the whole time. I mean, Clemson was like trying to make a push at the end, but they really couldn't do anything. I think it was going into fourth quarter 6-28. So I think was what I remember.
Yeah. Okay, that's not close.
Yeah. Louisville kind of just let Clemson score a little bit in the garbage time.
It's disappointing if you're a Clemson fan because you're in a position to just make a run to the conference title game, play Miami. But now you have SMU who's undefeated in conference play, and it looks like they might not pick up a loss.
Yeah.
And you have Miami, who also looks like they won't pick up a loss right now. So that's probably your ACC conference title game right there is SMU versus Miami.
Yeah.
Clemson, unfortunately, kind of shot themselves in the foot this game.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, there's not turnovers or anything to go off of. But Louisville is just a good team. I mean, Clemson did have a nice 222 on the ground. But Louisville's defense was just able to stop them when they needed to stop them, you know?
I mean, part of the problem, Clemson was off a bye, right? Like, Clemson didn't play the week before, so it raises questions about team preparation and stuff when you're off a bye. Louisville was on a tough travel stretch, I'm pretty sure, as well.
Yeah.
So it raises a lot of questions with the Clemson locker room because it's like, what's really going on if you really can't put together a good performance, especially for a game like Louisville where clearly they're a good team, so you can't sleep on them.
Yeah, I wonder if that is what David Sweeney was kind of thinking, though, is like, okay, we have a bye, let's rest. I wonder if they rested too much in this game, though.
They could have.
And they weren't fully locked in. And this was an amazing game, though. Still a lot of credit to Louisville because they went into Death Valley and beat them 33-21. And they were making the fans leave pretty early. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit to Louisville for sure, but still, if you're Clemson, you got to figure out how to show up for games like that because if you can't, you're just not going to win championships. And this is a team that by Dabo has set a standard of winning championships. So the longer that they continue to underachieve, the more upset fans will get.
Yeah.
And different things like that.
Their running back, though, Phil Maffa didn't underachieve, though. He had 101 yards, 2 touchdowns, and
171 yards, actually.
171 yards, I'm sorry. 171
you're
yards. Good. And how much attempts?
It's 30 carries, so 5.7 average.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why I wrote 3 on here, though.
You're good. Alrighty. Next up, Hawaii versus Fresno State.
Yeah, I stayed up the whole time to watch this game. I mean, it was an earlier start, though. It started at 7 our time, so that was nice instead of staying up till like 10 till the game starts. I was kind of losing faith in this game. I kind of was, kind of wasn't. After Braden Shager threw that pick six, and the one pick six that he did throw, it was a 3rd and 13. He threw a bullet pass, and he shouldn't have thrown it though. Like I feel like he's too smart to not throw that, he's too smart
to make that
throw. And he ended up throwing that, and it ended up being a tip ball like 40 yards up in the air, coming back down. Fresno State guy was already running that way, caught the ball, and scored a touchdown. But it was an impressive showing for Hawaii because in the second half they didn't allow any offensive scoring, like no field goals, no touchdowns, nothing. And it was just impressive last 2 drives by them. Their play calling and their time control was really good at the end. Because they kind of let the time wind down after Hawaii was able to cause Fresno State to have a PI, and then that kind of just allowed Hawaii to score a touchdown there.
Yep. That pick six really was kind of the story of this game because Hawaii dominated the time of possession. I mean, nearly doubled Fresno State. They did double Fresno State's yardage, but this was still a 1-point game because of play like a pick six.
Yeah, and they just couldn't finish off drives. For some reason, like I don't know why. I mean, Hawaii was pretty much this is a game Hawaii should have won by a lot more, just if they just didn't make those little mistakes.
Yep.
Driving down the field.
Interesting stat. Fresno State had 19 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
19.
That was amazing.
That is awful.
Amazing for Hawaii.
Awful for Fresno. Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
Just awful production on the ground, but really good defense from Hawaii. Their quarterback, too, is 25 of 31, which is pretty solid, but only a 5.1 average.
And then he had 172 yards in the air while throwing 25 completions, which is crazy.
Yeah, so 37.7 QBR from him, so not great.
Oh, and going back to the reason why I said 13.5 was a weird number is because Hawaii was... Fresno State was favored by 13.5 at the beginning of the week, and then Hawaii ended up upsetting them.
Right.
And now Hawaii is 13.5 underdogs again to UNLV, which could be a potential upset.
Alrighty, shall we get to it? It's our top 25.
Yeah, let's go into the top 25. I was kind of disappointed in this week's, playoff rankings.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff for sure. We'll get into that here very shortly. But at number 1, I've got Oregon.
I still have Oregon, too.
At number 2,
it's not really a debate for me still.
You can't debate Oregon right now because they've got that 0. They've got that Ohio State win. You just can't really debate them.
And they're still doing really solid. So.
Yeah, they're just playing good football. They just trounced Michigan. Number 2, I got Georgia.
Yeah, I have Georgia as well.
The playoff rankings have Ohio State at 2.
For
the life of me, I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that with that because Georgia had a win over a good Texas team. Texas is still a good team. Like I feel like people kind of like I've been seeing some other rankings and they've been putting Texas down at like 13. I was like, what?
No, you can't be counting Texas out like that because again, their one loss is Georgia, and Georgia's really good, especially when the right Georgia team shows up. Yeah, I mean Ohio State has had some really close games against inferior teams, which I guess Georgia has too. I just feel like the teams that Georgia has played and had close games against are better than teams that Ohio State has played close games. And yeah. Like Florida, Georgia was close with for a long time, but Florida's a good team. I think people forget how good Florida still is just because of their record. You're not always what your record says you are, as Josh Pate always says. Sometimes the record could be misleading. Florida's in reality probably one of the better teams in college football. They just have one of the hardest slates in college football to play against.
Yeah, and I do wonder how close the game would be if Carson Beck didn't throw those 3 interceptions in that game.
Yeah, Carson Beck's really got to figure out his stuff with his arm because I was watching that game and he just made some really questionable decisions.
Yeah. He's kind of inconsistent this year and what's his name? Mel Kiper?
Yeah, Mel Kiper.
Yeah, he had him in the top 5 for quarterbacks this season and he hasn't been really playing as a top 5 quarterback in my opinion.
Not at all. Carson Beck's been very inconsistent. He's really cost his team at times. Luckily, got away with 3 interceptions in this one, but he needs to clean it up going forward.
Yeah, at least he knows he can trust his defense, though.
Yeah, for sure. At 3, I have Ohio State.
I have Ohio State as well in that.
Yep, Ohio State, I think... Obviously, I'm not putting them above Georgia, but they did just get that Penn State win,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been fairly dominant against other teams. I mean, they killed Iowa.
Yeah.
Obviously, that close game against Nebraska. We'll see what happens down the stretch with Ohio State versus teams like Indiana.
Yeah, hopefully this Penn State game was a turning point for them in their way of playing and in their motivation of playing, and hopefully it will calm the Ohio State fans down.
Yep.
As long as they don't lose to Indiana, though, is the thing. As long as they don't lose to Indiana, then their fans should stay happy.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be a jolly Christmas for them.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, at number 4, I've got Miami.
I have Texas at number 4.
So Miami, I've said it a bunch, but they need to figure out their defense.
Mm-hmm.
But as of right now, they're still looking really good. They're just also a slow starting team on offense, it seems, because they start to find their stuff in third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's the dangerous thing, though, is that you can't do that in playoffs or anything, because if you have a slow start,
it is dangerous for sure.
Then that team is going to keep you slow the whole
If they're against a good defensive team like Georgia, they're going to struggle to make a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, obviously they still keep getting it done. We'll see what happens down the stretch with them. They don't really have any games where they should lose for the rest of the season. They'll be favored the rest of the way, of course.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens in that ACC title game, probably against SMU.
The only for the only reason I have Texas as number 4 is just because Texas looks like a better team. They look well rounded, and I just like how Texas looks all around.
Yeah. At number 5, I've got Texas. Just because they do have that one loss, so I put them under Miami.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to switch it at the same time I do though. I'd BYU at 5.
What?
Yeah. People.
No way.
They're BYU's just getting so much disrespect, and I'm like, this week I kind of want to push BYU more to up in the rankings, because I mean I saw they had more top 25 wins than the current playoff, the 4 teams that are currently ranked ahead of them in the playoff rankings.
Yeah, I mean ahead of them in the playoff rankings is Penn State, Indiana, Texas, and is it
Who'd you say?
Miami?
Yeah, Miami.
Those 4 are ahead of them, and there's one ranked win there between those, and that's who is it with that ranked win? It's not Indiana. I don't understand how Indiana's ranked.
It's Tennessee.
It's Tennessee. That's right, Tennessee.
They have a win over Bama.
That's right, Tennessee. Yeah, I mean Tennessee's a good team, but
yeah.
This is a good segue for me because number 6 I have BYU. I just don't understand the disrespect from the national pollsters and rankers because BYU is undefeated against a much harder schedule than Indiana. You can't make the argument to me that Indiana's had a harder schedule. Of course, Indiana's been really good and they've been doing what they're supposed to, but they have not done it against quality competition yet.
I mean, Indiana, they have 100. They're 100. They're 103rd in strength of schedule.
Yeah, that's really bad. And BYU's in the 50s.
BYU is actually 61.
61. Okay, so
and
right there.
It looks a lot better. And you know who also has 61? Oregon does. Oregon. Actually, no. I'm sorry. I think it was Ohio State who is 60. Who is also in the 60s for strength of schedule. And like.
No disrespect for Ohio State.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like they have the similar strength of schedule, and BYU's undefeated still.
Yeah, for whatever reason, BYU, from a national standpoint, everyone views as fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I just don't because continually they destroy teams, but continually that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it for those playoff committee and for the AP committee, it doesn't matter because BYU is, I don't know, they still see BYU as a FBS group of 5 underdog.
Yeah, they still see them as independent, even though they're a Power 5 team now.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to change it. I'm going to make BYU and Miami tied for 5th. I'm just going to tie them instead.
All right.
It just makes more sense for me. I had Miami number 6, though.
Okay. So, number 6, I have BYU. Number 7, I have Penn State.
Yeah, I have Penn State, too.
Penn State, offense is nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
They can't do it against good defenses. They just can't for whatever reason. Yeah, that's Penn State 7.
I actually thought Penn State could have won that game.
They could have, for sure.
Defense
played well enough for it. I mean, they have a really good defense.
Their defense kept them in that game the whole time, and what's that one penalty though where he stepped over the player? And I saw it like 4 or 5 other times that night where they were just both getting up and he ends up stepping over the player and just walking away. It wasn't called except for that one Penn State game where supposedly they were playoff. They're like playoff and SEC championship referees. They ended up calling that, which I thought wasn't really too big of a deal.
Yeah, interesting stuff with Penn State. At 8, I got Tennessee.
I have Indiana at 8.
Yeah, Tennessee, I just think, is a more proven team because they do have that win against Bama.
Yeah.
Their one loss is Arkansas, and Arkansas is a good team, even though it doesn't look like it after their game against Ole Miss. Yeah, I still think Tennessee's legit. They got to figure out something on offense, but their defense is going to keep them in every game.
The only reason I put Indiana over Tennessee is because it's kind of the same reason that they kind of they've been disrespected in the AP polls. Obviously not in the playoff committee because they ranked them over BYU for some reason. But yeah, I just thought Indiana, they kind of deserve respect too.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I put Tennessee at 9.
I mean, at number 9, I got Indiana, which is still higher than the AP has it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because they had Indiana at, I think, 13 in the AP.
Yeah, so Indiana has 0, but, like, again, I'm going to go back to why they're not above BYU. They have 0 top 25 wins. They do what they're supposed to against the inferior teams, but no top 25 wins still. And until I see them beat a team that's, like, reputable and really good this year. So, like, if they beat Ohio State, obviously they're going to surge in my rankings because then, obviously, like, they're a proven team now.
If they keep it close against Ohio State, then I'll keep them where they're at.
Yeah, if it's close against Ohio State, they'll stick. If they just get killed by Ohio State, though, I'm gonna
drop them down pretty far. I think for Indiana though, the funny thing is that when I was listening to the commissioner yesterday, the president of the playoff rankings, I didn't really like what he had to say about why they ranked Indiana over BYU is because he said that Indiana's been winning every game by 14 plus points against not very good teams, and I kind of thought that was a stupid reason. Well, it's not stupid reason, but it's not a very good reason.
No, especially if it's not against especially if it's against not as good competition. Because I mean BYU beat Kansas State by a lot of points. Obviously, it was 39-9. Or sorry, 38-9.
And they obviously still have respect for Kansas State because they kept them in the top 25.
Yeah, so I really just don't get it. It's whatever. Number 10, I got Boise State.
I have Boise State, yeah. I have Boise State too.
Boise State just continues to win. They don't have a P5 win yet, I don't believe.
They don't.
But they're still just being dominant against the G5 team, so I can't really keep them out.
They did have that nice win over Washington State, though, 45-24. But Boise State, close game against Oregon, that's what puts them up there. They did just destroy San Diego State.
Yeah, they just killed them. I watched parts of that game and it just wasn't close.
Yeah.
At 11, Notre Dame surged for me.
I have SMU at 11.
The reason Notre Dame surged so much for me is because everyone above them lost. Literally everyone.
Yeah.
A&M lost. Iowa State lost. Kansas State lost. Like, every single team that I had above Notre Dame lost last week. So it's like, well, thanks a lot. Now I got to put Notre Dame with a loss to Northern Illinois, a bad MAC team. And, yeah, it's just... Yeah, Notre Dame at 11, but I'm not happy about it.
Notre Dame went down for me compared to last week. Even though there are teams in them that lost, I just think those teams are still better than Notre Dame, and they don't have as bad of a loss.
Number 12.
I'm going to go to SMU real quick because I had them at 11. The only reason I had them at 11 is they had a very nice win over Pitt, a blowout. And SMU is a really good team, I think. And the playoff committee obviously respects them, and I respect them too by putting them at 11.
Yeah, number 12, I've got SMU. I mean, they just boat raced Pitt, and they've been dominating the ACC. Their one loss is the top 10 BYU. Should be like top 8 BYU, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. But
sadly,
SMU is a really good team. They're just really balanced. They've got a good defense. They've obviously got a great offense. Yeah, I think this is a good range to have SMU in right now.
For my 12, I have Alabama. I just like the way Alabama plays. They've been able to fix some stuff up, and then hopefully we'll truly see how good Alabama is against LSU.
Yeah, big matchup this weekend for Bama and LSU. 13, I've got Ole Miss, because Ole Miss just boat raced Arkansas, and Arkansas has proven that they can come close in some games.
Yeah, I like Ole Miss too. Ole Miss is a very fun team to watch. A lot of passing. I do love the passing game. I said last week though, I love watching rushing, but I mean when you do have a very high scoring passing game, it's of course still super fun to watch.
Yeah, it's hard to go away from the pass game when it's been so dominant for them.
Mm-hmm.
I got them at 13, of course. But yeah, I think if Ole Miss continues to win too, they're still a contender for the playoff.
You said you have Ole Miss at 13?
Yeah.
Okay, I have Ole Miss at 13 too, so
cool.
we can stay on that. We have the same topic, so I think we're good for that. For them.
Cool. 14, I got Bama.
Okay, I have A&M.
Yeah, Bama I still think's really good. They need to figure out some things defensively, I think. I've said that about a lot of teams, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Bama, I think at 14 is a pretty solid ranking for them. They've got 2 losses still, but they're obviously still in the SEC if they keep winning.
Yeah. The only reason I have A&M at 14 is, yeah, they did get blown out, but they still seem like a better team than a lot of the other guys that put behind them.
Yeah, I mean A&M's still in it because they have 1 conference loss.
Yeah, and then if they can figure things out before the Texas game, then that'll be huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have to get through their next few opponents first, though.
Yeah,
of course.
15, I got LSU.
I have LSU at 15 as well.
I still think LSU's a really good team. They're off a bye, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so off a bye going against Bama. It's a huge game for both teams. Really excited to see how that one plays out because pretty sure that'll be middle of the day. My Cougs don't play till late at night on Saturday, so
yeah. This was definitely a big bye week for both Bama and LSU going into this game because I mean, of course, big game it'll definitely determine who makes the playoffs.
I mean, on top of that, this is a rivalry.
Yeah.
This is a rivalry game, so
it's gonna be a fun rivalry.
It's gonna be very passionate game there. But yeah, moving on. 16, I got Iowa State.
Yeah, I have Iowa State too.
Iowa State's a good team. Still, they barely lost to Tech by literally 1 point.
Yeah.
Iowa State could still win out. I think they will win out. But yeah, suffered a loss. Obviously, they got to move down from a loss, but
yeah, Iowa State. I'm gonna say Texas Tech. The people forget is still a really good team.
Yeah, they do.
And so I didn't want to move Iowa State too far down, but just enough. That's why I put them there.
Yep, I feel like 16's a good spot for them.
Yeah.
17, I got A&M.
I have Notre Dame.
See, A&M just got boat raced. It's hard for me to justify putting them a lot higher, although I think they're a better team than 17. For me, this is more of a ranking than it is a rating. I think A&M's a better team than Iowa State. I think A&M's a better team than SMU probably, but they have that blowout loss to South Carolina, so.
Yeah, that's true. You have to put that into factors.
Yep.
Like we said last week, losses have to count for something.
Yeah, and I'm sure A&M's going to move up for me in the next little bit because they just got to get to the Texas game. They have 2 winnable games coming up.
Yeah, for me, though, I'm not a big fan of Notre Dame still, just because Notre Dame hasn't shown too much against really good teams yet, and I get Navy's a good team, but then, again, Navy had 6 turnovers, which I didn't watch all of it, so I don't know if it was Notre Dame forcing those turnovers or if it was just Navy
giving it up.
I think, though, if Notre Dame beats Virginia by 21 plus this week, then I think I would put them higher. If they do next week, I'll put them higher.
Alrighty, 18, I got Clemson.
I have Colorado at 18.
Clemson, Colorado.
Yeah.
I just glossed right past that for a second. Colorado at 18.
Yeah. I like what Deion Sanders is doing there, and I know they didn't play this week, but Colorado just looks like they just look like a good team. They look like a solid team who has a much clearer path to the Big 12 championship game. That all Iowa State needs to do is just lose one more Big 12 game, and all Colorado needs to do is win out. And so it shouldn't be too hard.
And Colorado, if I remember right, has a pretty favorable schedule going forward. Iowa State's still got to play Kansas State.
Yeah, and they do have to play Kansas this week, which Kansas is still a tough team because I mean, yes, 2-6, but like Josh Payton said,
they're better than their record.
Yeah.
Kansas has really figured things out the last little bit. I mean, they almost beat Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
They lost by 1. Kansas is a team that scares me if I'm a BYU fan. In like a week and a half. But Iowa State has a chance to just knock them out of bowl eligibility status, which would be nice for me because that would mean that the team might just be going defeated to BYU.
Yeah, but also the thing is if that Kansas ends up beating BYU, then that just looks like a worse loss for BYU.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't think it'll happen if Kansas loses to Iowa State this week. A lot of implications there.
Mm-hmm.
18 I got Clemson. Just got boat raced by Louisville. Obviously, Louisville's a solid team, but like you're off a bye, you gotta be able to compete, especially against Louisville. You can't expect to be ranked really high if you're gonna go and have a performance like that against an inferior team.
Yeah. Yep.
19 I got Kansas State.
I have Washington State at number 19.
Okay.
I'll go first. Washington State, they play solid ball. There's not really much to say here. Just I like the way they play. They play really clean football. They did have that bad loss to Washington State, but then they did have a nice win over Texas Tech. So I just think with them not losing this week because they didn't lose, I just have them higher up.
I have Kansas State at 19 because it's a close loss to a Houston team that's been figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
If Avery Johnson doesn't throw those 2 interceptions, it's a completely different game.
Yeah.
I still think Kansas State's really good. Obviously, I'm not going to put them as high as I did last week. They were at like 13 for me last week. But, yeah, I still think Kansas State's a good team.
I have, or what else do you want to say?
I honestly was done.
I have Kansas State at 20 for me.
I got Army at 20.
Okay, you go first for this one.
Bryson Daly's just so good.
Yeah.
Bryson Daly's incredible. Was it Air Force they played this last week?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it wasn't the flashiest, if I remember right. It was like 20-3.
Yeah.
Defense held Air Force to 3 though, which is good.
Yeah, rivalry games though that's the thing is rivalry games. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, they can always be trickier. So good win for Army, of course. They'll play Notre Dame in a few weeks. That game's gonna be their national title.
Mm-hmm. For me, the reason why I had Kansas at 20 is or Kansas State at 20 is just because they had that loss to Houston, and Houston, like, they've been figuring it out, but they still look sloppy to me, so that's why I have Kansas State lower.
Yeah, that was a really sloppy game for sure for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
21 is where I have Colorado.
Okay.
They still got those 2 losses. All the teams that I have ahead of them, aside from Kansas State, just have 1 loss.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State beat Colorado, so I have a hard time putting Colorado above Kansas State, even though that game could have gone either way. But yeah, Colorado's obviously figured stuff out. They got killed by Nebraska in really just the first half of that game.
Yeah.
Which just looks ugly, especially since Nebraska's not been awesome down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. They did just lose to UCLA, which isn't a good team.
Yeah. But Colorado's still figuring things out down the stretch, and I think they have a chance to move up here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, for me, the reason why I put Colorado though over Kansas State though is because it's because they just seem like a team that they figured it out down the stretch more than what Kansas State's been doing, because they did just lose to Houston, is my thing, in a sloppy fashion too, and Colorado's been looking clearer and clearer, like they've been finally like into diamonds,
Yeah. I couldn't move Colorado up a whole lot after just a bye week, but if they go out and just dominate this week, then I'm sure they'll move up more in my rankings.
Yeah. We're on 21, yeah?
Yeah.
I have Army at 21.
Yeah.
They play solid football, like I said, with Washington State. No problems with them. They haven't played a very tough team. They will play North Texas this week, which they are a good team. North Texas is at 5-3, while Army sits at 8-0, and they are coming off of a win against Air Force.
22, I have Washington State, because aren't they 2-loss team?
They're a 1-loss.
1 loss? Okay. So they got beat by Washington, right? Or was it Boise?
Boise. They beat Washington.
Okay, they beat Washington, lost to Boise.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like a pretty quality loss, but I can't put... Army and Washington State are like similar level since they're both G5, but I couldn't put Washington State above Army just because it is similar strength of schedule, and Army has been winning, and Washington State does have that 1 loss. So Washington State still ranked for me, but a little bit lower for me.
Yeah. For Washington State, for me, the only reason I put them over Army is they did have a nice quality win against Washington, they're doing pretty well for their first year in the Big Ten with a first-year head coach as well, who's kind of building from the ground up because Kalen DeBoer kind of took all his players with him.
Yeah, and just a lot of players graduated too from the team.
Exactly. So I think they're doing good stuff at Washington. That's why Washington State with that win looks good to me. For my 22, I put Pitt at 22. I mean, they don't look like a good team still, but like they only have one loss so far.
That's too high.
They look better than. Oh, they don't. I don't know if they look better than, but Missouri is not top 25 material for me.
23, I have Louisville.
Yeah, I have Louisville. Yeah.
They have 3 losses, I believe, but all of those losses could have gone either way if I remember right.
Yeah, he definitely.
Close loss to Miami. Close loss to SMU.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who was their 3rd loss.
I don't remember that either, actually, to be honest.
Okay, well, regardless, they had 2 close losses to really quality teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think Louisville's really solid.
Yeah, Louisville balls out. I like their offense. Their offense, they always look good. If their defense though could get it figured out, this could be a whole different ball game for Louisville. But because they didn't, they're down at 23.
24. Welcome Vanderbilt.
Yes, yeah, I have Vanderbilt.
Welcome Vanderbilt. It's my first time putting them in 2 times in the top 25. I know it's a long history of not putting Vanderbilt in a whole one time, but yeah, I just think Vanderbilt's. I mean, they got a win against Kentucky, right?
They beat Auburn.
Auburn, that's right. Get those lower tier SEC teams mixed up, but Auburn's a good team. They just can't win games, but they held Auburn to what, 7 points?
They held them to 6, I think.
6 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Vandy at 24. All of their losses except for that one FCS loss, or was it G5 loss?
G5 loss to Georgia Tech.
Yeah. No, not Georgia Tech. Georgia State. Yeah. Georgia State. Yeah, I think Vanderbilt's a good team. 24, I think is a good spot for them.
And also to add on to that, Vanderbilt, that was their first one in I can't remember how long it was, but they said like since like the 19 something, since they won in Jordan-Hare Stadium at Auburn. Vanderbilt, I mean, if they were SEC contender, this would be like a blowout, but because they're not, it was closer than expected, but Auburn's still a good team, so can't deny that. Yeah, I like Vanderbilt. I mean, I did see this thing where their linebacker, he actually saved a screenshot of the Auburn, one of their coaches telling him, "Sorry, we don't really have a need for linebackers anymore," and then he screenshotted that, saved it for 2 years later when they did beat Auburn, and just posted it out like day of game.
Yeah, I mean, any win in the SEC is going to be impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Vanderbilt at 24 I think is a good spot.
Yeah, and Diego Pavia is 2-0 against Auburn. If you remember, last year New Mexico State beat them.
Yes, he's like 3-0 against Alabama teams
really?
as a whole, because he beat Bama this year, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot.
All right, 25 is Pitt.
Okay.
Pitt is so bad, and yet they're still ranked. I just okay. Pitt is not a bad team. I'll just get that out. I didn't mean that. Pitt is not a bad team.
Yeah.
However, how in the world are I just don't get how they're ranked as high as they are in the college football ranking, college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
They haven't any quality wins. The one quality team that they've played, they got smacked by, just utterly destroyed by. I mean, they have wins against Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's been decent in Big 12 play, but Cincinnati was also still figuring things out at that point in the season.
And Cincinnati was ahead of Pitt in that game, and then Pitt ended up coming back and winning
it was a weird game.
I think a bowl game I would want to see, though, is Pitt and Missouri, because those are 2 teams that are not top 25 deserving, but for some reason they are in top 25.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I still have Pitt in my top 25. That's just because they have 1 loss in a Power 5 schedule. It's hard to keep a team completely out of the top 25 when that's the case. But, yeah, Pitt.
Yeah.
Frustrating team. Frustrating team for me because I just overrated.
I have Clemson at 25. That loss was not very good for them. I probably could have put them at 24 or something like that, but I didn't really want to move Vanderbilt down because I like Vanderbilt. I think they're a solid team. But that was when you got to get it figured out because that was a kind of embarrassing loss.
Yeah,
at your own stadium.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them, but
yeah, it's yeah. Clemson's like interesting. Like beginning of the season, they got destroyed by Georgia. And then people was like, "Oh, we're not gonna make the playoffs." And then they've been doing this well up to the Louisville game, and they're like super excited.
We're gonna make the playoffs, and then they went and laid an egg against Louisville.
Yeah, exactly. And now their fans have no hope again.
Yeah, it's just interesting things in Clemson.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney's playing with their hearts.
For sure.
Okay, let's talk about the games.
Yeah, let's get into previews.
Michigan and Indiana. What do you think? Upset or no?
I don't think so. Michigan's coming off of a pretty demoralizing loss to Oregon. Just got kind of smacked down in that one. Indiana obviously has been really good all season. I don't think they're gonna catch Indiana sleeping. I just think this is a team that has culture enough to where they're not gonna sleep on teams. Michigan is a team right now where to beat a team of the caliber of Indiana, they have to catch them sleeping. I just don't think Indiana will be sleeping.
Yeah. For Michigan though against Oregon, they kept it within 14 all the way up to that fourth.
I watched a big part of that game and it was close for a little while. Oregon just ended up pulling away because consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the consistency of the elite teams that really separate them.
That is impressive though that Michigan was able to keep it that close to the number one team.
Yep.
I don't think Michigan will upset them this week. Indiana this week. I mean, Indiana looks good, but the dangerous thing is that they were ranked as high as, with the way they were ranked as high as they were this week. That could give Indiana a little bit too much,
cockiness.
Cockiness, exactly, and Michigan might be able to catch them slacking, but I don't really think they will.
Yeah, I just struggle with Michigan because they don't have much of an offense at all since they don't have a quarterback that can throw it on their roster.
And they don't have an elite running back.
Yeah, they don't have an elite running back either. They don't have an Ashton Gianti that can just take over the game. So I just think Indiana's going to run away with this one in the end.
Yeah, my pick is Indiana as well. I probably should have wrote the point spreads on here, but
that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, next game, Georgia and Ole Miss. What do you think of this one?
It's a really interesting matchup because Ole Miss has looked incredible offensively. Georgia's been suspect offensively at some times just because of Carson Beck's carelessness with the ball, I'd say. He just gives it up in a lot of key situations. The interesting thing, though, Ole Miss's secondary isn't great.
Yeah.
Their secondary has struggled. Obviously, Arkansas threw all over them, really, because both of their quarterbacks had really good completion percentages. So, yeah, interested to see what will happen. I don't know what version of Carson Beck is going to show up.
Yeah. So, what would you say your pick is for this week?
I think my pick for this one is Georgia, but it's going to be close.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's defense will slow down Ole Miss's offense well enough. Georgia does have a pretty young secondary. I just think that they'll figure it out defensively enough to pull out the win against Ole Miss.
I think Georgia, I agree with you, Georgia's going to win, but I think it will be by a larger margin, by 10 plus, I'd say. Just because I think Carson Beck, or knowing coaches, because my dad's a coach and my grandpa's been a coach, and I have uncles that's been coaches, and I've played on the football team. After a bad game like that, your coaches get on you for that, and you know and you want to perform better. And so I think Carson Beck, with the way he played last week, it'll give him fuel to play better this week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the person, that can go one of two ways. That kind of pressure can make you play way worse, or that kind of pressure can make you play way better because you can take it and make yourself better. I think Carson Beck's the kind of guy that's going to take it and make himself better just because, I mean, you don't get to be a 5-star recruit without taking losses and making yourself better.
Well, he was actually a walk-on, though, if you remember.
Was he a walk-on?
He was a walk-on.
I thought that was Stetson Bennett.
Oh.
I thought Stetson Bennett was a walk-on. I don't know.
I can't remember.
I might have to fact-check that here in a second.
Yeah.
But
for me, though, I have Georgia winning it by 10 plus points.
Yeah. I think Georgia will win. I just think it'll be close.
Florida, Texas is our next game.
Ooh, this is an interesting one because
Yeah.
obviously Florida's shown that they can compete with people. They competed with Georgia, probably better than Texas did.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, they did.
Obviously, I don't think the same Georgia team showed up, but interesting. Unfortunately, DJ Lagway though won't be able to go. He'll be hurt.
Oh yeah.
Yep, DJ Lagway got hurt against Georgia, and he gave that offensive spark that it didn't really have before. He didn't play incredible against Georgia by any means, but like they were still moving the ball okay. But that kind of went away once their backup came in. So I think Texas is going to take care of business against Florida just because DJ Lagway's hurt, and I don't know what that offense has to offer.
Yeah, I agree with that because again DJ Lagway, and Florida, I feel like without DJ Lagway they won't be able to do as much as they did against Georgia.
Yeah.
That game was funny though because when DJ Lagway got injured, have you seen that meme where SpongeBob is doing this with the rainbow over his head and he's smiling? It was kind of like that with the Florida backup quarterback. He kind of just like smiling, just like waiting for him to go in or waiting for his chance to get in. And he got in there, and so that was just hilarious.
Yeah, as a quarterback, like I have to imagine like that would be like sad, obviously, to see your buddy get hurt, but then you'd also be like, but I get to go play.
Exactly. You're like, I get to play some SEC ball.
Yeah. So. We'll see what happens. I think Texas though is going to run away with it pretty quickly too.
Yeah, I think they will. I'd say I'm gonna give Florida. I'm gonna tell them they're gonna keep it close in the first quarter, but then after that it's just gonna be done. So yeah, Bama and LSU now.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah,
it's a really tricky one. Bama's secondary has been really suspect at times. And obviously LSU is a legit pass game. Garrett Nussmeier is really good. He's got some really good wide receivers in Lacey. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Bama's, I think, better against the run, but like LSU's not great against the run. LSU's not great with the run anyway, so it's not like they're going to be trying to run it all over Bama. I think LSU's defense is going to have a hard time, though, stopping Bama's offense because it's just so high-powered. Jalen Milroe, we'll see what version of him shows up because the past couple of weeks he's been a bit different. There's some speculation that maybe he's hurting, but Bama is off a bye week, so there's a chance that he's been able to heal up a bit.
Yeah.
Give me Bama in the game, though, because I think that offense is going to find their way against LSU's defense, which LSU's defense has been better this year. It's just Bama's offense is so good, it's really hard to stop that offense in general.
Yeah, I like that pick too. I would pick Alabama. And in this game with Bama, I feel like LSU is gonna make a lot of mistakes like they did at the A&M game, and that he's just gonna throw one too many picks, or they're gonna just turn over the ball one too many times. And I just think Alabama's they're gonna be able to capitalize on that. And I get that you're playing in Death Valley, probably the toughest place, one of the toughest places to play in the world, and LSU did beat Bama 2 years ago at Death Valley, but I don't think that's going to happen with this Bama-LSU game.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what LSU can do on the ground. I think a lot of this is going to come down to that.
Yeah.
If LSU can run the ball, I think LSU would win the game. Thing is, I just don't think they'll be able to. I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to have to throw a lot, and because of that, not anything against him, it's just going to make you more suspect to interceptions. And because of that, I think Alabama's going to win this game.
Yeah, LSU actually has the 111th rushing yards per game, which is not good. And and I know, knowing Alabama, I think Bama will be able to stop that.
Yeah.
I mean, 111 is not really.
No, 111's not going to get it done in the SEC, and yet a lot of SEC teams seem to struggle with the run right now.
Yeah.
But I think Bama's just going to be able to get it done.
They might have to reinvent the ground game again. Because, I mean, first thing they invented was the ground game. And then they're like, oh, what? We can throw the ball
Big 12's kind of taken that over because the Big 12 is just so good on the ground. But SEC's been struggling with the ground game. The Big 10's not been bad, but they've not been great with the ground game either.
Yeah.
Big 12's really just been a rush-heavy league. But, anyways.
That's been fun to watch, though.
I think Bama is going to take this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Army and North Texas next.
Yeah, give me Army. I just think Army's been so solid this year. Bryson Daly's just hard to defend. Just so athletic. The athleticism is unbelievable for him. But I think he'll have his way against the North Texas team. Yeah, give me Army.
What are you thinking, blowout or close game?
I think closer, not like a blowout.
Yeah.
But not like super close either.
So like, what would you say, like 10 plus?
Yeah, 10 to 15 points.
10 to 15. Yeah. I think this game will be a fun game because North Texas, they seem to be a decent, pretty well-rounded team for a G5. They're second in the nation in passing yards per game, 70th rushing yards, and Army's 134th passing yards, which is the lowest ranking you could get.
Yeah.
And first in rushing yards per game, which of course is not surprising.
It's funny, the stark contrast there, just having like the best running game and then the worst passing game.
Yeah, and then it'll be fun because North Texas is going to be throwing it all over, and then Army is going to be running it all over.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's just see how well their offensive prepared their defense for that.
It'll be interesting. If Army can really control the ball and, like, run the field, run the clock while they do that, it'll be a pretty easy win for them.
Yeah. I have Army in this game, too. I have it being around that same range, 10 to 15. But if Army can win it by more than that, then I'm more confident with picking Army over their upcoming teams.
Yeah.
Next game, Colorado and Texas Tech, a big game for the Big 12.
Yeah, really interesting implications here because suddenly if Texas Tech beats Colorado, Tech's right back in that conversation because say Iowa State then goes to Kansas State and loses. Say like everyone else wins out or whatever. Kansas State has 2 losses, Tech has 2 losses, Colorado has 2 losses. Iowa State has 2 losses at that point if they lose to Kansas State. Then suddenly Tech is in the conversation for that conference title game because they obviously have the head-to-head over Colorado. They have the head-to-head over Iowa State. It would just be whether the committee picks Kansas State or Texas Tech.
Yeah, and you said Kansas State or Texas Tech?
Yeah.
I think with that, if let's say just a scenario, let's say Iowa State loses this week to Kansas, but then Kansas State beats Iowa State, would you think Texas Tech would get a nod over Kansas State because Texas Tech has that win over Iowa State and Kansas State beat Iowa State?
I don't know. It would be interesting, but it would definitely be like a chaos scenario.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. I meant for Iowa State to beat Kansas State after they lose to Kansas.
Yeah, at that point Iowa State would have 2 conference losses, right? If they were to beat Kansas State. Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech would have the head-to-head, so they'd for sure get the nod into the conference title game.
Okay, I was just wondering that. I was wondering about that.
But that's still a chaos scenario because then that's like 4 2-loss teams that could get into the conference title game. I don't know what's going to happen with BYU, but I think there's a good chance they win out.
Yeah.
Especially with how they've been looking. Scary game this weekend, obviously, with the rivalry. But yeah, I think this game's really interesting. We haven't even gotten into our predictions for the game.
Yeah.
But, Texas Tech is obviously feeling themselves after that win against Iowa State. They're not going to come in sleeping to Colorado because Colorado's obviously ranked in the top 25. This isn't a game that you catch Texas Tech sleeping. Colorado's defense has been on and off at times, it seems to me. I don't know a ton about Colorado. But, yeah, Texas Tech's good on the ground with Taj Brooks. Texas Tech obviously proved they can throw it last week against Iowa State, who's a really good defense. Texas Tech, though, really susceptible to the pass, I believe.
Yeah.
And Colorado's obviously a pass team. Like, that is definitely the best part of their offense. They're trying to figure things out more on the ground.
I think Colorado's done well figuring it out on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, they're not
the coming weeks.
They don't have great averages yet, but they're doing better than, like, their old rushing stats, like against Nebraska.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think Colorado's going to win this game, though, just because I think that pass game will be too much for Tech to handle. We'll see if Tech proves me wrong, though, because they did last week.
Yeah. I like Colorado in this game, too. I like what Deion's been doing over there. They're 8th in passing yards in the nation. And then they're 130th in rushing yards, but they've been able to figure it out on the ground. I feel like if you were to take the last 3 to 4 games, then I feel like they would be ranked higher.
They'd be ranked higher for sure. I mean,
the rushing yards.
Problem though is like their average yards per carry is still not good. Like I'm pretty sure it's still in the mid 3s in their rush yards per carry. But yeah, I just think that pass game will be too much for Texas Tech.
Yeah, and also I think Colorado's a more well-rounded team. They have a better defense. Texas Tech's point against, they're ranked 121st. Colorado's ranked points against is 42nd. And Colorado's I feel like they've been playing like the same quality teams, you know?
Yeah. I mean, look back to the week 1 when Texas Tech played that FCS school and almost lost in double overtime.
Yeah.
That was like a 50-point game for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was crazy.
Tech's defense obviously has been susceptible through the weeks. Weren't though against Iowa State. They were actually quite good against Iowa State. So we'll see what version shows up.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna pick Colorado though. I think Colorado will have enough to get it done.
Yeah, I'm picking Colorado too.
Colorado just has a more prolific pass offense than Iowa State does. Iowa State's more balanced than Colorado is, but like Colorado's better at that one thing than Iowa State is.
Yeah, I agree with that. They what's it called? Deion son, Shadur.
Oh yeah, Shadur.
He's been really well.
And obviously Travis Hunter is a freaking monster.
Yeah.
He hasn't allowed a single touchdown on the year on defense, and then he's doing incredible on offense, obviously. I don't know what the exact stats are there, but...
Yeah, and he he did end up winning a few weeks ago offensive and defensive player in the Big 12, which is amazing.
No, he's just so good. He's so good.
Okay, let's get into your favorite team, Utah versus BYU.
This is a scary one. BYU fans over the years, we've been conditioned to believe that our team will let us down at some point, and that has not been an exception this year. Every single one of us is waiting like, all right, which week are we going to get let down? I don't know if we're going to get let down this year, but if there were a week for it to happen, it would be rivalry week against Utah. Utah's 4-4 right now. Their backs are against the wall, though, and they would love to spoil BYU's season, especially their perfect season. They would love to do whatever they can to derail it.
Yeah, knowing Utah fans, because I did end up going to the college game day last year, Utah versus Oregon, and Utah fans really didn't like BYU. They were chanting FBYU and stuff like that, and Utah fans, I mean, the hatred in this is deep.
And obviously, Kyle Whittingham's a really good coach. They'll be ready coming out of the bye week for BYU.
Yeah.
I just don't think, though, that BYU won't be ready. I mean, I know the players are mad because Utah fans and Utah just as a whole has disrespected them the entire offseason compared to the Utes. So, passion's not going to be a problem for the Cougars in this one.
Yeah, definitely.
They're not overlooking Utah either, I can promise you that. Like, they're ready for this game. It's just a matter of how good Utah can be in this game. I just don't think it's that good, honestly, offensively especially.
So, your pick?
My pick is BYU.
Okay.
My pick is BYU. It'll be like 10-point differential.
10-point differential? I like that. For me...
10 or less.
I like BYU in this game, too. Utah, I've been seeing a lot of questions between who's going to be the starting quarterback this week, which might be a downside for Utah because you just don't know who you want to put in and who will get.
It could be a downside for. I think Utah actually knows what they're going to do though. I listened to Kyle Whittingham's press conference and he made it sound like they have their plan. They don't want to reveal it to BYU. So BYU's going to have to prepare for everything. Obviously, Oklahoma State coming out of the bye really exploited BYU's defense with like read option and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just think since BYU's off a bye this time as well, they'll be ready more because against Oklahoma State they also had a short week to prepare.
Yeah, that's very much true.
So I just think BYU's defense will be ready for whatever Utah's offense that's struggled a lot so far can throw at them. So I just think BYU's defense will be too much for Utah's offense. BYU's offense has been really good so far. Utah's the best defense they'll play this year, I think. But Utah's defense also hasn't played any great offenses yet, to my knowledge at least.
Yeah, that's true. Utah's points against is 11th, and their points for is 109. So their offense is not looking very hot.
Offense is bad, and if BYU can create turnovers, which they have all year, this will be a pretty easy win for BYU.
Yeah, I think BYU takes the win here. I'm going 10 plus points.
10 plus, okay.
Yeah.
I have like 10 or less on mine. I'm nervous.
Yeah, I know like BYU. I know BYU fans, like you said, are conditioned.
We're scarred
to expect a disappointing game.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I like BYU, especially coming off of a bye. They have a lot of momentum, and I know they'll be playing with a lot of passion. Let's just hope that passion isn't going too far.
It's controlled. It's got to be controlled.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I just think BYU's got it figured out. We'll see what happens, though. I'm scared as heck. But yeah, give me BYU.
Yeah, I like BYU too. Okay, last game. UNLV Hawaii rivalry game, 9th Island Showdown. They have that big pineapple trophy for for whoever wins it. I want to hear your thoughts on this first, even if you might not have a lot of it.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about Hawaii still. They seem to be a team that's really good defensively, from what I can tell, just over the last 2 weeks. UNLV, though, really good on offense. Hodge is just so good. He's him.
Yeah.
Their quarterback. UNLV's defense is obviously really good as well. It's tricky because UNLV's traveling to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, so those time zones might really mess them up if they.
That's a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So it'll be tricky. UNLV's off a bye, right? They didn't play last week.
Yeah, they're coming off of a bye.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot for Hawaii just because they did go to Fresno last week. Obviously, they're coming home. But UNLV's rested and probably really well prepared for this game. The question is if the traveling to Hawaii affects them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it affected Boise State, and because that game was all the way close up to that fourth quarter.
Yep.
And so it can happen to the best of teams, you know.
Yeah, it can. So we'll see what happens. I really don't know what's gonna happen because UNLV could show up and like just the best version of that team's there, but also the UNLV could show up that's like tired from the long flight, looking ahead to the next week or something like that. So honestly, I think the game will be close, but I think UNLV will win.
Okay. For me in this Hawaii game, of course, Hawaii fan. It's kind of hard to pick against Hawaii as a fan. I love Hawaii's rushing defense, especially coming off of a huge momentum win against Fresno State because they came back in that game. They scored 13 points to win it, or Hawaii scored 14 points to win it in that last quarter, in the last 2 drives. And Hawaii was able to hold Fresno's rushing to 19 yards the whole game, which was amazing. And UNLV's best unit is their rushing yards. They're 6th in the nation.
For sure.
And they're 5th for points for, 59 for points against. And Hawaii, like, it's always kind of scary for me. Like every week, like I'm always super excited for the game. Then it's also scary because like we want to make a bowl game. That's our main goal right now because we're 4-5. We just want to make a bowl game. We still have a chance to make to the championship game though, which is surprising considering we're 4-5. But I think the momentum coming from the Fresno State game will carry over into this week. Well, not what I think, that's what I hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think plus also this game isn't more licking wounds. You're not like licking your wounds or anything. You're kind of you're just still pushing the wall, you know. I think that's it. You're just still pushing the wall. And so, yeah, as a Hawaii fan, I have to pick Hawaii in this game.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I do like UNLV, though. UNLV is a really fun team to watch.
Yeah, UNLV's got stuff figured out. We'll see which version of them shows up this week.
Yeah, big home field advantage for Hawaii. So
yeah,
that's
for sure.
That's beautiful for us. It's huge.
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 Alrighty, well, I believe that's the show, right? That's our last game to predict. Hopefully get this video uploaded soon. We got our boy Zay to do that for us. He's got edits ready. We're gonna look legit.
Yeah.
But last week we got the video uploaded pretty late on Friday night, so hard to expect many views when you get it uploaded that late because no one's really focused on week 9 when week 10's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But I do appreciate those views that we did get, though.
Yeah, I do appreciate those 30. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah.
Be ready to watch some football on Saturday, and hopefully our predictions were right.
Hopefully.
It'll be fun. We should write down what predictions we made so we can see how we did. We did pretty well last week, I think. I did at least. I know my picking Miami to cover was huge.
I had a lot of blunders. Well, because Duke was supposed to, and then they
Duke was supposed to cover, but
it's okay, you know. It's a new week.
It's a new week.
It's a new dawn for America college football.
It is. Alrighty. Well, from Tanner and from Nephi, we thank you guys for watching and tune in next week.
All right. Aloha.
See you guys.